Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today I'm going to talk to you guys about some DNFs. I talked to you guys a little bit ago about my recent DNFs and how I was going to change things, and then shortly after that, that change didn't work. So originally what I was doing was a quarterly DNF video, and then I was doing a video every 5 DNFs. And the reason that that change didn't work is because I went from having too many DNFs to talk about and then not knowing kind of the details to having too many DNFs in a short amount of time, and I was only going to be doing DNF videos. And so clearly that didn't work. So this video is slightly different than any of those because it is going to focus on the series that I am going to be DNFing for next year. I love to read series. I will be doing kind of a series recap along with my yearly numbers and stats that I give you guys. So I will talk about the series that I am reading and the ones that I've been loving in a later video, but for today I'm just going to talk to you guys about 4 series that I have decided to move on from, and then I will also talk to you about 2 recent DNFs that I think I read enough of the book that I can give you a good basis on why I'm not continuing those stories. Let's start with the series that I will not be continuing with. For those of you who have been here for a minute, you know that I do have several goals that are surrounding series on my channel. I am a series girly. I do read a ton of series and want to make sure that I'm keeping up with them and that I read them within a reasonable amount of time. I don't binge series by any means, but I do want to read them in an amount of time that I'm not reaching to recall what happened in the first, second, or third books if, I'm getting really deep into a series. And the books that I'm going to talk about today, the series that I'm going to give you guys that I will not be continuing with, are stories that I haven't reached for this year. There's one series that I did read one book in the series this year, but because of where that story went, I've decided not to continue. But let's start with the ones that I just haven't reached for this year. I am a little nervous because these series are ones that I know a ton of people love. They're not for me. At this moment in my life, I am not reaching for these. I'm not sad that I haven't continued them. And so I just think it's time for me to kind of clear off a little bit of clutter on my mental plate. And the first series I will mention is Nevermore. I started this in the Battle of the Booktubers. The first book was recommended to me and I did enjoy it. I had a fun time with it. It's a very lively middle grade, but I think that I am not connected to the characters, and it's been a minute since I did pick up the first one, so I do think I would almost have to reread it. And with it being a middle grade, since I wasn't just dearly in love with it, I feel like I can let this one pass me by and I'm not missing much. That sounds terrible, but that's just kind of where my heart is on this series. I know this is a beloved series, so me not reading it is not going to harm this book. And it's nothing that the book did. I just don't think I'm interested in, I think with middle grade reads, one of the things I have discovered is I do really think I like standalone middle grades. I don't know if that's because I get tired of the characters, the antics, or if it's just I feel like if I have a series within middle grade, it gives more time for kind of the fluff and stuff that I don't necessarily like in middle grades. Whereas if we have a standalone, they kind of have to get right to the point. We have to have a lot of action. I don't know. I don't know if that's exactly why, but I do find myself, the middle grades that I've just dearly loved and I have in my collection are ones that are standalones. So yeah, this one I'm just going to say goodbye to. The next one is, actually the next 2 are YA stories, and so that kind of also goes along with the theme of middle grade. YA books I have really been struggling with recently. Within the past several years. This hasn't been the last couple months. It's a significant amount of time for me to really just evaluate and say a lot of YA books are not for me. I did really enjoy Ascendant, which I have on my shelves now and will continue that series. And so I'm not completely counting YA books down and out, but I really have to gravitate towards them and they have to be calling my name in a way for me to pick them up or to give them a try. And One of these was also a Battle of the Booktubers series, and that is Cinder. I know a lot of you love the Lunar Chronicles, and I really liked Cinder. I thought it was a very fun retelling of Cinderella. I almost said Snow White. It was a really fun retelling of Cinderella. I liked the components of the kind of bionic pieces, and how the story of Cinderella was used, but it was an original take on that story with kind of some sci-fi elements. I did like that. I am not sure, and I think this is where my kind of disconnect with the story goes and why I don't want to continue the series. I don't know that I need more. I really liked Cinder's character and the main love interest is what I'll say, and I just don't know. I think that's where I need to leave the story, because I am, as you guys know, I am not a romance reader, and I'm a little concerned that when I continue with the story that's going to become more prevalent. Although maybe does this book follow the same two characters? I can't even remember what the second book in the series does. I literally haven't thought about this book all year, and I think I want to be pleasantly surprised and leave this series in a good space for me, and I'm worried that if I continue with it, it's not going to hit right, and then that will have sullied the original book for me. So this one, I'm going to leave this to the people who love it and move on about my day. The next YA series that I will be leaving behind is the Sand Sea trilogy. The first book in this is The Stardust Grail, and the second book, which I can't remember the name of it, came out this year. And while I did enjoy the first story, I do think it was rather dry, and I don't know that I am super invested in any of the characters, if you see kind of a theme with some of my DNFs. Enough so that as I think back on the original storyline, I can remember bits and pieces, but I'm not really heart sick about not being back with them again and not being able to continue the journey with these characters. I think maybe that's a lesson that I can take from this DNF discussion video, is that if I'm doing a middle grade or a YA read, I probably need to continue those series immediately in order for me to stay engaged, just because of my lack of connection with some of the characters in those stories. Obviously, that's going to depend on the type of story, the type of characters that are built, the plot, and whether or not it allows for a lot of growth, or if it's, an adventure story or whatever. There's a whole bunch of different variables that are involved, but the fact I didn't even realize when I sat down to film this video that 3 of the 4 series I'm DNFing are either middle grade or YA. So I just think that's telling for my reading taste and where my brain is at, because I have series on my list of books or list of series that I haven't gotten to that I haven't read in a while, and I sat down and was like, okay, we need to be like brutal about what series we want to DNF. And most of them, I was like, no, I still want to give that one a chance. I will tell you that there was one series that I do think you guys will be bummed if I do end up DNFing it. It's going to stay on my radar for now. But one series I almost put on this list, but I talked myself out of it, was the Locked Tomb series. And the reason I almost DNF'd it was because I really did not like Horror of the Ninth, and I'm worried that Nona the Ninth, which I think is the next one, will be similar. And I just wasn't into it. So that one is kind of on my radar. But anyway, the last series that I will tell you guys on this list that I will not be continuing with, that I have made a decision, and I did talk to you about this earlier in the year, I just wasn't for sure, and that is The Burning. The first book in the series is The Rage of Dragons, which I really liked, was a Battle of the Booktubers book. Oh my goodness. I didn't realize that either. So it was a Battle of the Booktubers book, and I am so glad that I read it, because it was definitely a series that I was avoiding reading because of the war components. I didn't know if I would really jive with it. I do like books that are set within wars, but they have to be done to my taste, and I was a little worried that this one wouldn't be. I liked Rage of Dragons a lot. The revenge story, the bad decisions that our main character is making the entire time, the horrible things that happen to him, and you just feel kind of heartsick about his situation and why he's making the decisions. However, with the second book in the series, I got kind of exhausted by the story and how it doesn't really change. We have the same arc happening in the same book, or in the second book, as we did on the first. It's just a whole bunch of, I'm going to get revenge to the detriment of myself and everyone around me. And it just became a little bleak. I need books that have light in them, and books that can kind of bring me out of the gloom and doom and the destruction of someone while that's happening, because it was just exhausting, is the way I would describe my brain as I was reading this book. A lot of things do happen that are very intriguing, and obviously because of the connections that I made with the character in the first book, the second book, I was distraught about a whole bunch of things that happened. But towards the, I don't know, probably 60% mark on, when I realized that nothing was changing and that we were still making the same bad decisions and the same horrible things were happening, just in a different place and maybe to a different people, I started not to care, which is not a good sign. And I really do think that I want to, once again, kind of reiterating what I said before, I want to look back on this series in a pleasant way. And I think if I continue with it, I'm going to get so fatigued with the story that that's all I'm going to remember. So unfortunately, because of how bleak the story is, and I think that there's a point to that, by the way, too. It's intentional. It's not, I don't think the book is poorly written. The series is poorly written. I think that it's done really well. I just think that it's specifically not for me, because I do get very fatigued with it and need a little bit of a break. On to the two stories that I have that are not series DNFs. They're just books that I've read recently and DNF'd. And both of them I got significantly into the story, and it just didn't work for me. So the first one I am super upset by, and I'm really glad that I didn't purchase this, because I almost did, and that is Blood on Her Tongue. I absolutely loved My Darling Dreadful Thing last year. It was phenomenal. I still think about that book. It is on my shelves in my horror section, and I will reread it. It's such a beautiful, haunting, eerie story, and I wanted that in Blood on Her Tongue. The writing is still beautiful. However, I hate the main character. There's so many other things that I also didn't like, but the main character is really insufferable. I think that she makes a lot of dumb decisions. She reminds me, I will tell you this, for those of you who have been here for a minute, she reminds me of Harriet Hunt. If you guys have ever read or saw the vlog that I did on, I can't remember that whole title, but I'll put the book cover up so you guys can see that. But Harriet Hunt, I want it to be like a women empowerment, book where we have this woman who's being taken advantage of, and then she steps out of the fire or whatever and rebuilds her life. That's kind of what I wanted for, I think her name was Lucy in Blood on Her Tongue. I can't remember the character's name, but she ends up making some decisions and having other people make decisions for her. She just kind of feels like someone that other people step on, and she lets them. And the conversations that we were having towards the end of my tenure with the book, I didn't want to know what decision she ended up making, because I could almost see it happening, and it was such a train wreck, and I just couldn't do it anymore. Getting to over 3/4 of this book and still having these feelings, I knew that the arc was not going to be long enough for me to enjoy our character's victory if she did end up making a comeback and making decisions for herself. Another thing that really bothered me about this story is the infidelity. I'm not going to say too much because it would be a spoiler for some of the things that end up happening in the book, but there is a romantic entanglement that happens within the story that I just don't understand why it added to what was happening. I think that they were more poor choices for people that I hated seeing on page, and I didn't enjoy their story arc either. So that just lessened my enjoyment And I decided instead of finishing this story and giving it a bad rating, I would just DNF it and leave it alone, because I know several people who have really enjoyed this book. So I know that there are people out there who will, and I don't want to speak poorly of it. There are a couple of things in the book that really drove me nuts, and it's very unfortunate. I will read by this author again. So it hasn't, like, Johanna Van Veen is not down and out by any means in my book. It's just this one, unfortunately, didn't work for me. The last book on this list, I did talk to some of you on my sprints and at, I think, one of the Bucket Listathon videos that I did, the recap videos that I did, and that is Black Powder War by Naomi Novik. This is the one that is in the middle of a series. It's the third in the Tamaraire series, which I dearly loved the first two books, and this one was just kind of a disappointment. However, it did hit me at a time where I was in a bit of a funk. I had DNF'd. Speaking of, you know, at the very beginning of the story, or the very beginning of this video, whenever I told you guys that I had DNF'd like 5 books at once, that was while I was picking up this one. And so I do think I was in a little bit of a funk, and that could have impacted my enjoyment of this, but it really focused a little bit too much on the war and not enough on the conversations and the relationships between our captain and Tamaraire, which is really what I wanted. I wanted those homey vibes. I don't really care about the battle scenes or the politics between England and France. And I do like a political fantasy, but for whatever reason, this one was getting a little bit grating to me. And so I ended up putting this down. You can actually still see my bookmark in there. I got to page 243 in 340-ish pages. And so I made it quite far, but I decided that I was going to spend my time better and enjoy my time better if I picked up a different book. So that one I'm still debating whether or not I want to try and read this one again and see, because I'm not going to skip a book. Even though it's only, you know, 100 pages or so. If I can't get through the third book, I will DNF the series, but I will probably give it one more try and see in a different time, in a different year, in 2026, I'll pick it up again and see if it maybe was the time I was reading it that was the problem. So those are my recent DNFs, some series that I won't be continuing with, as well as a couple of books that just didn't work for me. Let me know if you guys have DNF'd any books recently. Were they really disappointments for you, or were you, you know, going out on a limb and trying to find something that was a little bit out of your comfort zone and it just didn't work? I would love to chat with you guys in the comments below. If you aren't feeling chatty but you still want to let me know that you are here, this doesn't really have anything on it. Maybe leave me a vampire for blood on her tongue, that little emoji in the comments, just so I know that you're with me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.